Picture this. You're at a posh dinner party, champagne flowing, everyone dressed to the nines. Suddenly, 3 masked gunmen storm in. Chaos erupts, screaming terror. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. The person who saves everyone isn't the wealthy businessman, the politician, or the security guard. It's the quiet maid who's been invisible to everyone all evening. What happens next will absolutely blow your mind. The countryside estate of Willowbrook Manor in the Cotswolds was ablaze with golden light on this particular Saturday evening. Lord William Ashworth, a prominent financier with connections stretching from the City of London to Wall Street, was throwing the party of the year for his wife Margaret's 45th birthday. The Georgian mansion's grand ballroom sparkled like something out of a fairy tale. With crystal chandeliers casting dancing shadows across the marble floors, luxury cars snaked down the tree-lined drive as Britain's elite arrived in their finest attire. Inside, waitstaff glided between guests carrying silver trays and vintage champagne. The air buzzed with polite conversation, gentle laughter, and the soft melodies of a string quartet positioned near the ornate fireplace. William Ashworth commanded attention wherever he went. In his mid-50s, with distinguished gray temples and a voice that could fill a boardroom, he was used to being the center of every gathering. Tonight he beamed with pride as he watched his wife Margaret work the room. She looked absolutely stunning in her emerald silk gown, her auburn hair swept into an elegant chignon. Margaret had this incredible gift of making everyone feel like the most important person in the room, whether they were a cabinet minister or the local vicar. But whilst all this glamour unfolded in the spotlight, someone else moved quietly through the shadows. Her name was Amara, and at just 29, she'd already seen more of the world than most people twice her age. With her rich, dark skin and intelligent brown eyes, she possessed a grace that came from years of discipline and training. Her crisp black uniform was perfectly pressed, her movements economical and purposeful. To the Ashworth family, Amara was simply their live-in nanny and housekeeper, reliable, discreet, brilliant with the children. But to 10-year-old Oliver and 8-year-old Sophie, she was so much more. She was the one who chased away their nightmares, who helped with tricky homework, who listened to their secrets without judgment. In their innocent eyes, Amara wasn't staff, ... She was family. As the evening celebration reached its peak, Amara had quietly shepherded the children upstairs to the gallery overlooking the ballroom. They pressed their faces against the ornate railings, watching the adults below with wide-eyed fascination. "Amara," little Sophie whispered, tugging at her sleeve, "you look lovely tonight." Amara's smile was warm but gentle. "That's very sweet of you, darling. Now remember, we're just having a quick peek before bedtime." Oliver bounced excitedly beside them. "Look at all those people. Do you think they'll have the chocolate fountain soon?" "I'm sure they will." Amara chuckled softly. "Your father never forgets the important details." Down below, William was tapping his champagne flute, preparing to address his guests. The room gradually quieted as he began his heartfelt toast to Margaret. Speaking of her kindness, her strength, and how she'd been his anchor through 20 years of marriage, Margaret dabbed at her eyes with a silk handkerchief, radiant with happiness, as applause filled the ballroom. Everything seemed absolutely perfect. But perfection, as we all know, can shatter in an instant. 3 figures dressed entirely in black slipped through the servants' entrance at the rear of the manor. They moved with purpose, their faces concealed behind dark balaclavas, weapons gleaming dully in the moonlight filtering through the kitchen windows. They'd been watching, waiting, planning this moment for weeks. The transformation was instantaneous and terrifying. One moment, elegant guests were raising their glasses in celebration. The next, screams pierced the air as the intruders burst into the ballroom, automatic weapons raised. Everyone on the ground now. The lead gunman's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Phones, jewelry, wallets, everything valuable in the center of the room. Panic exploded through the crowd. Grown men and women who commanded boardrooms and political parties suddenly became helpless. Crawling behind overturned tables, their designer clothes torn and champagne-stained. Crystal glasses shattered against the marble floor, creating a carpet of glittering danger. William froze completely, his face drained of all color. Margaret screamed, instinctively reaching for where her children should have been, then remembering with relief that they were safely upstairs. But that relief lasted only seconds. From the gallery above, Oliver and Sophie watched in horror as their parents' world turned into a nightmare. Sophie began to cry, her small body shaking with fear. Oliver tried to be brave, but tears streamed down his cheeks as he witnessed the terror below. But Amara. Amara didn't panic. Something shifted inside her, something that had been dormant for 3 years. Her military training kicked in automatically, her mind instantly assessing threats, calculating angles, planning responses. She pulled both children against her, her voice calm and steady, despite the chaos erupting below. "Listen to me very carefully," she whispered, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Stay exactly where you are. Don't move. Don't make a sound. I need you to trust me completely." One of the gunmen spotted movement in the gallery above. He swung his weapon upward, shouting, "You up there? Bring those kids down here. Now." The ballroom fell silent, except for muffled sobs from terrified guests. Margaret let out an anguished cry, and William found his voice long enough to shout, "Please, they're just children." But Amara stood slowly, placing herself between the gunman and the children. She didn't cower, didn't beg, didn't show even a flicker of fear. Instead, she looked directly at the armed man below, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "You're making a mistake," she said simply. "Your hands are trembling. You're scared. You don't want to hurt innocent children tonight." The gunman hesitated, thrown off by her composure. No one had spoken to him like that. With such quiet authority, such complete lack of fear. The guests stared up at her in amazement. This was their soft-spoken nanny, the woman who arranged flowers and read bedtime stories. But the other intruders were growing impatient. The second gunman grabbed an elderly peer by the collar, pressing his weapon against the man's temple. "Enough games. Give us the bloody money or people start dying." That's when something fundamental changed in Amara's expression. Her eyes hardened, and for just a moment, everyone in that room glimpsed the soldier she used to be. She moved with lightning speed, vaulting over the gallery railing and landing on the ballroom floor with cat-like grace. Before anyone could react, she was in motion, closing the distance to the nearest gunman in 3 swift strides. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Amara grabbed the gunman's wrist, twisted with precise technique, and sent his weapon clattering across the marble floor. A sharp elbow to his solar plexus doubled him over, gasping for breath. The second attacker swung toward her, but Amara was already moving. She used his momentum against him, a perfect hip throw that sent him crashing into an ornate side table. Priceless vases exploded in a shower of porcelain fragments. The third gunman raised his weapon, his hand shaking as he tried to draw a bead on this unexpected threat. But Amara's eyes locked onto his, and her voice carried absolute conviction. "Put it down. You're outmatched, and you know it." For a heartbeat, he hesitated. Then training took over, and he tried to fire. But Amara was no longer where he'd aimed. She'd rolled behind a marble pillar, circled around. Before he could track her movement, she'd disarmed him with a move that would have made her old instructors proud. 3 armed men who de-terrorized a room full of Britain's most powerful people now lay groaning on the floor, completely neutralized by a woman they'd dismissed as harmless domestic help. The silence that followed was deafening. Then came the sound of sirens wailing in the distance, growing closer by the second. Police flooded the manor within minutes, securing the scene and taking the 3 suspects into custody. As statements were given and questions asked, every single witness pointed to the same extraordinary woman. "She saved all our lives," one guest whispered in awe. "Moved like something out of an action film," another added, still shaking his head in disbelief. When the last police car finally departed, the Ashworth family found themselves alone with Amara in the wreckage of what should have been a perfect celebration. Children had been brought downstairs and now clung to her like lifelines, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and admiration. William was the first to break the heavy silence. His voice was barely above a whisper when he asked, "Who are you, really?" Amara looked down at her hands, almost ashamed of what she'd revealed. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of memories she'd tried so hard to leave behind. "Before I came to work for your family, I served with the British Army for 8 years. 2 tours in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq. I was trained for situations exactly like tonight." She paused, her composure finally cracking slightly. "I came here hoping to find peace, to live quietly, to help raise your beautiful children. to forget what I'd seen and done in the desert. Margaret pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. The children looked up at Amara with something approaching worship, whilst William struggled to find words. "You could have run," he finally managed. "You could have taken the children and hidden somewhere safe. Instead, you risked everything to save people who've never really seen you." Amara shook her head firmly. "I couldn't run, not with Oliver and Sophie depending on me, not when I had the skills to stop those men." Her voice grew quiet, haunted. "I've watched too many innocent people die. I couldn't let it happen again. Not here. Not to this family." The emotion in the room was overwhelming. Margaret stepped forward and wrapped Amara in a fierce embrace, sobbing against her shoulder. "You're not our employee," Margaret whispered through her tears. "You're family. You've always been family. But tonight you proved that family means everything." Oliver and Sophie joined the embrace, their small arms circling Amara's waist as she finally allowed herself to cry. Not from fear or pain, but from the overwhelming realization that she'd found something she thought war had taken from her forever. A place where she truly belonged. William cleared his throat roughly, his own eyes bright with unshed tears. "I've spent my entire career thinking that power came from wealth, from connections, from influence. But real strength, real courage, it comes from people like you. People who put others before themselves no matter the cost." In the days that followed, word spread throughout their social circle about the extraordinary events at Willowbrook Manor. But for the Ashworth family, the most important change was how they saw the remarkable woman who shared their home. Amara continued caring for Oliver and Sophie, but now she did so knowing that her past wasn't something to hide from. It was part of what made her the protector, the guardian, the hero they never knew they needed. Sometimes the people we overlook, the ones whose stories we never bother to learn, turn out to be the strongest among us. They're not seeking recognition or praise. They're simply there, quietly making the world safer. One small act of courage at a time. What did you think of Amara's incredible story? Have you ever discovered something surprising about someone you thought you knew? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this story moved you the way it moved me, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear about real courage today. Until next time, remember that heroes walk among us every day. Just need to open our eyes and see them.